Oh, isn't that creepy? You can like imagine what my skull looks like. It's weird. Okay, so yes, that is the correct way to start out a story time video. Story time. Okay, it is time for a story. This is a fun little story. This is it's going to be about when I brought a knife to school. There's actually two instances. Doesn't sound right. I know it's a real word. There were instances. Instances. That's one of those words if you keep saying it over and over again. Instances, 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 instances. No longer sounds like a real word. Anyway, okay. Two times I went to, two times I brought a knife to school. The first time is not a very exciting story. I was in fourth grade. I was in the Boy Scouts at the time, and it was wintertime. I had a jacket, big puffy down jacket. It was actually a starter jacket with the Giants logo on it, the Giants football team. And I was very proud of my jacket, wore it everywhere. And we went on, me and my father went on a Boy Scout trip. It was like a camp over sleeping trip. It was during the school year, but we left on a Friday night, okay, after he got home from work and, I got home from school and everything. And we stayed Friday night into Saturday. We did activities all day Saturday and then came home Sunday morning. Now, there was like this big cabin where we went. And here's a mini story within the story. I don't sleepwalk ever, but I was so tired. Like it's not a problem. It's not something I've ever done, except for in this case. We had bunks, okay, and I was in the top bunk. Of course, you're the kid. You want to be in the top bunk. Ooh, me. All right. And in the cabin in the middle of the night, I fell out of my bunk, out of the top of a bunk. Keep in mind, okay, all the way onto the ground. Got up and started walking outside. Thank God someone else, one of the camp counselors that were there and supervisors for the whole group, his name was Mike. He must have been like maybe 19 or 20, but he was the big scout leader's son. So of course he was big to do, whoop to do. But he stopped me as I was walking out, and thank God he did, because I mean we're in the middle of the woods. I'm not familiar with anything. But he could have sworn, and he said to me the next day, he said that you obviously sleepwalk. And I said, no, I've never done that my entire life. He said, yes, you do. Well, at least you did it last night. And it's like, it's a good thing I stopped you. You would have walked outside, walked in the woods. So he said when he was talking to me in the middle of the night that he asked me what I was doing, because I'm like walking out the door. And I said, I have to go get the bone for the dog. The bone's missing. So obviously I was asleep, okay, and sleepwalking, which is kind of scary, and I've never done it before, and I've never done it since. But anyway, that's a story within a story. So we had a great, Boy Scout weekend, and that Monday when I came back to school, I forgot I had my Boy Scout knife in my pocket, which happened to be a Swiss champ, okay, Victorinox Swiss champ. And it was in a leather pouch, and I had it on the inside pocket of my jacket because I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. When you open a jacket and you have an inside pocket, it's always got something awesome in there. It's never something boring. It's not like tissues or something like that, or a snot rag. It's like you got a gun in there, or in the movie the guy opens his jacket up or his suit and he's got those important documents. And it's always something cool. So that was where I kept my knife because I was cool. And so anyway, Monday morning comes, I go to school, normal thing. And I'm hanging up my coat in the morning when I came in, and it's a very snowy winter day. And I remember distinctively, I had like my heart dropped, and all of a sudden I got a stomach ache. I'm thinking, oh, my knife's in my pocket. I'm gonna be in so much trouble. Mind you, I'm still young. I think I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it is, and of course I could have brought it over to my teacher and said, I'm really sorry. I was doing Boy Scouts, and just explain it. But I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. All right. So all day I'm really panicky, and I'm waiting for recess. Okay. Which, by the way, recess is the stuff. I don't know why as adults we don't have recess. I think like in the middle of a workday in an office building and everyone's suit and tie, or they're in their cubicles, someone just, comes out every single day at like 2:30 and says, "All right, recess." And everyone, all these adults go outside and like throw a beach ball and play hacky sack and stuff. But no, it doesn't happen. We got to be adults and responsible and whatnot. So anyway, we go out for recess, and my friends want to play basketball like right away. And I'm like, all right, I'll be right there. And I took my knife, and we had a spot over by the playground, and it was kind of like it was lining the woods. We weren't allowed to go in the woods because God forbid we get scratched by a stick or something or get hurt or lost. So if we always hung out close to the woods, and teachers would always be like, "All right, guys, come on, getting too close, too close." That was like a routine thing every day. We were too close to the woods. And by the way, there was these really cool mushrooms. I think they were puffer mushrooms. I don't know, but they were completely round, ball-like, okay, and all the spores were little tiny black dots. But when you stomped on them, they made a black cloud. And we used to think they were smoke bombs, so we pick them up and throw them at each other, and it's all fun and dandy. And we breathe in the spores, and I hope that wasn't poisonous. Maybe that's why I'm kind of a strange adult now. It's possible. But anyway, I go over to our spot by the woods, which is completely separate from the basketball court where my friends are. And I took my knife out and I threw it in the woods, just chucked it as hard as I could in the woods, like try to be like kind of slick about it. I did one of these backhand things. I remember this very vividly. I went like this, like as if I was looking up at the sky as to, throw off the scent of me doing something bad. And I'm like, and I went, and I threw it out in the woods as hard as I could. And then as soon as I did, I felt this relief, like, okay, I'm not going to get in any trouble. And I went off, I played basketball with my friends, and we came back in, and I finished my day. And to this day, I never got my knife back. The next day during recess, I was thinking about it, and I missed it a lot. It was like one of my favorite knives. I didn't have a whole lot of expensive knives at the time. And this is something I had probably 4 or 5 different Victorinox knives at the time. Actually, that's not right. I had 2 Victorinox, and I had 2 or 3 Victorinox ripoffs, totally Chinese-made Swiss Army knives. So it's not like my parents would know it's missing or anything. They didn't keep track of that kind of stuff. They were very trusting in my hobby of knives and stuff like that. And at that point, I still had tons of cheapos, so it's not like they took inventory or cared. But I missed it. It was my cool knife. And the next day, I remember thinking, hey, maybe I should go just grab it. It's not really a big deal. And I just never did. I was scared that if I went to grab it, then I would get caught taking it, and then I'd be questioned, and like I'd be thrown in jail. I don't know what I was thinking of. I was in 4th grade, But yeah, I always remember that. Also, my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Warren, she was a really cool chick. Really, really cool. We had, it's completely unrelated, but we had a thing in 4th grade. We learned about the continents and the oceans, okay, and all 50 states. Now, if you could name all the continents and all the oceans and name every single state, all 50 states, then you won it was like a little paperweight, and it was a square. It was clear crystal, and in the middle had a fake little globe. But it was like the coolest thing in the world, and everyone wanted one, okay? So everyone in the classroom constantly were trying to, remember these things. See, at the time, 4th grade, you think, oh, you should probably know that by then. Maybe we were dumb 4th graders. I don't know. But that's exactly what it was we had to do to get this thing. And it was the coolest thing in the world. We all wanted one. So I remember being very careful about remembering it all. And, I don't know why I'm even telling you this portion of the story. But I really wish I still had it so I can show you. I had it for many, many years, and I used it as a paperweight for many years. It was actually a really cool thing. And I was so proud of myself, when I passed the test. And in order to do this, you had to get up in front of the class and recite it. So part of this whole thing was that some kids didn't want to look stupid and not know it. So like a lot of kids didn't even try. And I remember my entire class, there's only 4 kids who actually did it, who attempted it and then actually got it. Me, my friend Chris, there was a kid, Dan, and Earl Kradiger. I'll never forget that kid. It was really strange. I can do a whole series just on him and his stories. But yeah, that paperweight was awesome. I used that for a very long time. That has nothing to do with the knife story. I don't even know why. I'm just thinking of 4th grade now. I remember we took a trip to Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and the whole time I thought I was going to see some topless women because I always heard that there was a nude beach or a portion of a nude beach there, and there is. But of course, that's nowhere our teacher took us. So the whole time I'm like, my friends are all excited. Think like fourth graders. Think like South Park. We were definitely, me and my friends were definitely like the kids from South Park. And if I have to be someone, I would assume I was probably closest to Cartman, but not a full blown Cartman. I was kind of a Cartman Stan mix, if anything. But anyway, good times, good times. All right, so that's the first portion. That's when I brought my knife to school the first time. Maybe not as exciting of a story. The second time was later in high school. Okay, now I can tell you, and I'm not proud of it, but I can tell you that I sold stuff in school my entire life. I was a little entrepreneur all throughout my school years, and every single year of school there was something else that I sold. This started in third grade. In third grade, blow pops were a big deal. The candy, the blow, the lollipop with the gum in it. Blow pops were huge, and our teacher, third grade teacher, Mr. Tennant, which was like 9 feet tall. This guy is ridiculous. Um, he had a basketball scholarship or something, but he never made it pro. I don't remember this whole story, but the guy was a giant, all right? And when we were learning our multiplication, our times tables and stuff, if you got questions right, he'd throw out a blow pop to you. That was like the big prize, and everyone wanted them. But I remember I went to my deli, and remember I'm in third grade, okay, and I begged my parents for a lot of weird stuff. I was a very strange kid most of my life, but I remember begging my parents to buy a dealer's case of blow pops, okay, and with the idea that I'm going to leave in my room. It's just for sometimes. I won't eat too many, I promise, that kind of a thing. And they went with it. I was pretty schmoozy with my folks, and they were pretty cool about a lot of things. But I got this dealer's case of blow pops, which had like 100 of them in there. And I brought them to school and I sold them. I sold them for like $2 each, which is ridiculous. But hey, you're a third grader in school, and you really want a lollipop. That's just kind of how it went. And people knew. It's not like they had money. Some kids spent their lunch money, but they would bring in money purposefully, their allowance or whatever, ask mom and dad for money, knowing that, Jeff's going to hook them up with blow pop in the middle of the class. So that was pretty cool. Then in fourth grade, the big thing was Sega Genesis. And I remember selling used Sega Genesis games, which I got from a thrift shop down the road from me. Scratched up and beat up, I sold them all day long. I was the hookup guy. And it progressed as I got older. The things changed, but I was always the guy. I was the guy you went to get stuff. You want something? Jeff will hook you up. Doesn't matter what it is. And as I got older, it progressed into different things, as you can imagine. But like by the time we get to like fifth and sixth grade, it started to be a porn of all things, because at that point, that's when a lot of kids were starting to get curious. And for some reason, I had the hookup. I won't tell you how, but yeah, just like I would rip out a sheet from a magazine. I had a stack of, porn mags, and not like, Playboy stuff. I mean, some real porn. And I would take out one sheet, and one piece of paper would be like $5. I made a killing. Not proud of it. I'm not, but that's the facts. And then as I got older and older, it was different things. At one point, it was fireworks. I was really, really into fireworks. I think like seventh grade, and I sold all kinds of stuff. And I had a girl, my friend Heather Cerruti. And if you're watching this, Heather, send me an email, because Heather was one of my best female friends growing up. Total like punk chick, really, really cool. One of the guys, but she was really hot too at the same time. I kind of wish I asked her out. But anyway, her brother used to come up from Mexico all the time and bring like a garbage bag full of M80s, like real M80s. And she used to hook me up with them all the time for free, because she kind of had a crush on me at the time. And at the time, I didn't care, because she was very tomboyish to me. But looking back, it was one of those. It could have been like a movie plot. Like she was the hot girl that liked me, but I didn't really know, kind of a thing, until after the fact. Anyway. She used to hook me up with those, and I used to sell M80s for like $5 or $10 a piece, and schmucks would be buying them all day long. I got an M80, cool, and go home and like blow something stupid up, and that'd be it. They always wasted $10. But I've always done that. It's always been something I was selling. Anyway, at some point I was selling knives in school, which again I am not proud of. I'm not condoning it. Please don't do it. I'm just telling a story. All right, so yes, in high school, I did have knives that I wasn't supposed to, but that's separate from this story. This story is about a knife that I plainly carried around. The purpose of this knife was for art class. We had to do a project where we had to draw a silhouette with crayons, and then after that we had to replicate the same thing in 4 different mediums, using different, oil paint and watercolors and all kinds of stuff, but replicate the exact same picture we originally did in crayon. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm into knives, let me bring a knife. And I wish I still had the knife that I brought in. It was a folding knife. It had a hawkbill blade. It was made by Master Cutlery. It was a piece of crap that I paid $20 at the mall for. And it's the only time in my entire life I bought a knife in the mall. But I really wanted it at the time, and it was cool looking. It turned out to be a piece of junk. But anyway, I removed the blade completely, okay, knowing that, all right, I'm not allowed to bring a knife to school, so I'll just take the blade off and it'll be fine. And for my picture, it was going to be a closed version of it. Okay, so I figured I would, in class while I'm there, we're supposed to bring our objects in, I would draw the actual knife closed. Okay, and then when I got home, I'd bring my project home and just fill in the blade closed. Obviously, I can't have that in school. I always did weird things in art class. 2 other mini stories, real quick. One time, I was heavily criticized by my teacher for bringing in a gas mask, which was another project where we did stills of a person. And you could bring in one prop, whether it be a bow tie, and these were examples she gave, like a bow tie or a backpack, something. It's basically a person with a prop. And my prop was a full, German World War II gas mask that I got out of a surplus store. And she had a big problem with that. She said it promoted war or something. I was like, I totally argue with her. I'm like, that's ridiculous. It's a mask. This is an art project. I can express myself. Later, I got into another argument with her. By the way, her name is Mrs. Cosgrove. Okay, so if you're watching, please send me a PM as well. I got another project with her where I wanted to draw a naked woman, but from the back. Okay, because at first I'm like, all right, I want to draw just a full-on frontal naked woman. Why can't I do that? I was always trying to be controversial and funny. I was always the funny guy. So she said, no, I don't think so. So I said, all right, let's compromise here. How about I do a woman who's nude, but she's facing away. The portrait is of her back. Perhaps I'll do the top of her buttock, is what I said in class, which of course created giggles, which was fantastic. It was awesome. Yeah, so I will just show maybe the top of her buttock, perhaps a little bit of crack. And I said, it'll be very classy. It won't be a disgusting picture. It'll be very artsy and classy. She agreed. So I went home, printed a picture that I found on the internet back in the AOL days, okay, where it took 20 minutes to load a picture. Beep, boop, 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 boop. I do not miss that. So I finally printed this picture, okay. Now, it was a porn picture, but it was from the back, and the girl had like a towel or some kind of blanket or something that was covering half of her butt. Okay, so it was basically just the top of her crack, and it was her back, and her arms were just down behind it, holding this whatever it was. But because this is a porn star and she has implants, her breasts are sticking out the sides. Okay, so in the picture you can clearly see from dead on from her back, you can see the side of her breasts. So I bring this picture in, and Mrs. Cosgrove sees it, and she goes, like, shakes her head like Jesus. But she already agreed to compromise with me, right? So I'm drawing the picture, and now I'm shading in the side of this breast. And she's walking around the room, and she stops me, okay, and she says, Jeff, you can't see a woman's breasts from behind her, okay? It's unproportionate. Because now she's kind of like digging into me because I'm purposely trying to push the limits here. And as soon as I said I want to draw a naked woman, all the other guys in the class, oh yeah, I want to do that too. So she didn't like that I'm starting trouble. Okay, which I get, fine. I was kind of a jerk to my teachers in some cases. But anyway, regardless, she's like, Jeff, you don't see real women's breasts from behind. And I say, well, this woman, I can see her breasts. It's in the picture. So now we're having like, not an argument, but like a heated discussion about this, and it's getting louder. And I kid you not, she turns to me, okay, and she says, Jeff, she turns away from me. She says, Jeff, can you see my breasts? Because she's facing away. Now, as she says this, her husband, who was also a history teacher in the same school, Mr. Cosgrove, walks into the classroom the exact second she says, can you see my breasts? And he walks in the doorway just like Kramer from Seinfeld, okay, just the And and the whole classroom was cracking up, and she was cracking up, and it was really funny. And obviously, it was very quickly explained to him what she was talking about. And then I remember hearing him after the fact say, "Well, even if it was harmless, you shouldn't be asking a student to look at your breasts." It was a very fun moment, though, fun loving. It was cool. I'll never forget that. And again, that has nothing to do with this story. But I bring this knife in. Okay, this is a totally different day. This is actually when I did the knife thing was towards the beginning of the year. The whole breast thing was later when me and Mrs. Cosgrove were kind of more comfortable with each other, and she kind of understood where I was coming from, and that I did push the limit, but I was a good student in the class. Like I wasn't disruptive. I just tried to be funny sometimes. So I bring this knife in. Okay, on the bus, and I take it out on the bus because I was explaining to one of my friends what I was going to do for my project. And a kid sees it, and he runs up to the front. This is a much younger kid. All right. At this point, I'm in 10th grade, by the way, if I didn't already establish that. 10th grader. Runs up to the bus driver, says, "Oh my God, one of the kids has a knife back there. He has a big knife." Just like that. "Oh, he's got a big knife." So I overhear this, think nothing of it. Bus driver never says anything to me. Okay. Apparently, after all the kids got dropped off and went in for school before our first period, because I had art first period, I'm in the classroom. I see a supervisor, one of the school supervisors, who comes in the classroom, whispers to the teacher something, then leaves. The teacher looks at me. Then she calls me up to the desk. I go to the desk. She said, Mr. Kreiner was his name. That was our VP. He was the one who dealt with punishment. It wasn't the actual principal, it was the vice principal. So she says, he wants to see you in his office immediately. Okay, leave your stuff here. Don't bring anything to the office. Okay, what's this about? Apparently, the bus driver had spoke to the supervisor for the school, who therefore passed the message to the VP, who brought it to my teacher. I go down to the VP's office, and he asked me in the classroom. Okay, he shut the door, and he looks kind of nervous at this point. Like he's sweating a little bit, and just seems very like something's wrong. And I knew something was wrong, but I really had no idea what at this point. He asked me to sit down. He said there was a rumor that I had a knife, and he said, "Don't reach into your pockets," just like that. He's like, "If you have a weapon on you right now, I'd like you to let me know, but please let me see your hands." So at this point, I'm like, nothing's going on here. And then as I'm holding my hands up like a moron, I'm explaining to him. I said, "I have a knife. It's in the classroom. It has no blade. I brought it in for an art project for Mrs. Cosgrove's class." And immediately he stops me, like as I'm explaining the story, and he says that's uncalled for. Okay, you're going to be punished now for what you've done. You did something very wrong. Okay, there's kids that are very scared on the bus. You caused panic. He went on and on about all this stuff, and I'm trying to get a word in, but it's not respectful for me to try to cut him off, like as my elder and a person in power, and I'm my superior at this point. I'm just a student. He's the VP. I should not talk over him. I should wait until he's done talking, then try and explain my case. But at this point, I'm kind of getting aggravated. And I was kind of a punky 10th grader. So I'm like talking over him, and I'm like, "Listen here." And I'm like, really trying to get control of the situation. And he calls in the security guard for the school, which, by the way, when I first went to high school, 9th grade, there was nothing. By 10th grade, society has made it really bad for schools, and like it's hard to explain. Up until this point, even in 9th grade in this particular high school, we don't have a lot of crime or anything, and there was no problems. There was nothing. But when I started 10th grade, they had a security guard that they hired for the school, and I suppose it was for like kids smoking in the bathroom and stuff like that. But later, even after I graduated, I heard that they put in metal detectors and all kinds of crap. So society is really kind of going down the crapper when you need metal detectors in schools. I mean, I'm in the suburbs. I'm not a city school. Anyway, turns out I didn't get like expelled or anything for it, but I was sent home for the day. My parents had to come pick me up. It was my mother, because my father worked a lot farther than my mom, and she was furious. Okay, not really at me so much, but just at the situation. And I remember just being so upset about it. The very next day, I brought in my I had I had a 357 revolver replica. This is way before I even got into guns. Okay, this is a metal gun. It was made to be a replica. It wasn't like a real firearm that was disabled for firing. I mean, the cylinders were solid. There was steel through them. They were cast like that. But I just to be a pisser and just to really push the envelope, I brought that in for my next project for art. Okay, which was happened to be the very next day, and I brought it in. No one saw it at all until I got to class. Took it out when I was in art class, put it on the table, and just started drawing. Didn't say a word. Okay. Mrs. Cosgrove came over and looked at me, and she shook her head, and that was it. And no one said anything. To this day, if I did that now, or if a kid did that now, he'd probably be arrested. Okay, he'd probably be considered a terrorist and thrown in jail and handcuffed. Okay, and dragged away from the school. You know, people beating him and spraying him in the face with mace. It wasn't that long ago. Okay, but it was still long enough ago where I can get away with something like that. My particular area, you know, and I never got in trouble for it. I did my project. I didn't say a peep. This was me just kind of sticking it to them and trying to, you know, make a point. Never said a word, did my project, never showed my friends or anything, you know, didn't care about that. Put it in my bag, had it in my bag all day, and then went home. And it was nothing. The project we had to do was a simple pencil drawing. Okay, it was kind of more of a sketch than it was a full project, so I didn't have to like bring it back and forth or anything. But I felt great about it. I felt like I won that mini battle. So anyway, those are my bringing knives to school stories. Of course, I have other stories about me bringing knives I wasn't supposed to have for selling purposes, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to promote that. I really don't. I made plenty of mistakes in my life, and I'm not proud of them. Some of them are funny to me now, but I don't want to get the message across that it is funny because it is a serious thing, and times are certainly different, and repercussions are different, and you certainly don't want to get into some serious trouble, so don't do that. You know, knives in school used to be, knives anywhere used to be a common thing. If you talk to anyone who's probably over 70 years old, they might tell you that, yeah, they always had a pocket knife. You know, kids brought knives to school. It was never a problem. It was accepted. It was never looked upon as being bad. It was never seen as a weapon. At some point in our history, knives went from being tools to becoming weapons. It was very common for a young boy to go to school and have a penknife on him as a tool for whatever he needed to use it for. You know, it wasn't taken out for fights. You know, they weren't cutting people. They weren't threatening people. They were tools. It was very common and accepted. And somewhere along the lines, things went sour, and they weren't tools any longer. They were now weapons, and they posed a threat, and they were banned. It's a shame. Then again, in today's day and age, I don't know if some kids could be trusted. Not all, but honestly, there's some moron kids out there, and if knives were allowed, there might be more of an issue. But you know, this gets back to my opinions on guns and planes. I honestly think you should be able to carry a gun on a plane with no problem. And a lot of people would disagree with that, but I think that if more people had guns on planes, then perhaps a terroristic threat would definitely decrease the possibilities or chances of a threat. It's just like we have gun-free zones. When you see shootings, they usually happen in gun-free zones because it's an easy place to go to know that no one has a gun. If you were a terrorist and you wanted to, say, hijack a plane, it'd be a warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that no one can stop you, that no one has weapons on them, except for perhaps a marshal or something that's in disguise. I don't know. I just feel like anything else. First of all, if you make something bad, and I'm going to veer way off topic here and talk about drugs for a minute. Pot specifically, marijuana. Some of you guys are for it. Some of you guys smoke pot. A lot of you guys don't. You know, some of you guys are young. Some of you are older. You all have various opinions on it. I honestly feel that if they legalized marijuana in the United States, that maybe it'd be like a problem the first year or so. But honestly, after a year, I truly feel like it would be less of a problem than it's ever been. Okay, first of all, I think that a lot of the allure to pot is the fact that it is illegal. At least for kids who are just starting to try things and try drugs. there's definitely this allure that it's something I'm not supposed to be doing. I think by nature we have a need to want to do things we're not allowed to. There's definitely a taboo there, and it would lose its luster if everyone can smoke pot. Like if you can go to a bar and drink a beer, or walk into a smoke shop and smoke a joint, a lot less people would care about it. Honestly, I really don't think that there'd be as much interest, as a whole. That's just my opinion. Of course, it could cause some problems, but it's like anything else. Whether it's legal or not, if someone wants it, they will get it. If there's a will, there's a way. And man, the government would make a heck of a more, a bunch of money on it if they taxed it. If you legalize marijuana and then taxed it, just like you do alcohol, you have a heavily taxed alcohol. It brings a lot of money to the government. Who knows? Maybe it'd help us get out of debt. Nah, not really. We're so in debt, it's not even funny. It's just a joke. Well, it is funny. It's a joke now. We're playing with funny money. We're past millions. We're past billions. We're past trillions. We make up words now for what we're in debt. I don't even know what the number is. It's funny money. it's just a number. We can call it, I don't know, Looney Tunes. It doesn't really make a difference because it's just a name. No one physically has that money. We're not going to physically pay it back to anyone. I don't know. Now I'm kind of rambling. Story's over. Story time is coming to an end. I'm sorry so much for scaring you guys at the beginning here with the skeleton look, but I was playing around with the webcam, just kind of looking at myself. By the way, I did keep the pubic hair. I think I'm going to grow it out. I'm going to see how long I can grow it, or how big I can grow it before I start looking like I'm homeless. We'll see. I'm sure it won't last forever. But anyway, that's all, guys. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed story time. I always have fun talking with story time because there's no expectations here whatsoever. If I'm doing a knife review, there's some basics I have to get over. I have to get some facts out. There's some opinions I want to remember. When I do story time, it's just like it's totally free to say whatever I want. Just like if I do a vlog or something like that. It's just awesome fun time. And I feel really relaxed and just natural doing it. And it's really cool. The only thing that's unnatural is me talking for long durations of time into a little piece of plastic. But that's okay, because I know through that tiny little glass lens, there's lots of people who are having a fun time. So I hope you had a fun time. Thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. You usually dedicate a lot of time to me, so I'm very much thankful for that. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, guys.